the medium tank number 2 experimental vehicle, the FV4202, also known as the 42-ton Centurion. It was a technology test bed developed by the Brits. It's in the British tech tree in War Thunder. That's what we're talking about today. That's what we're going to go into detail about. Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Haven here. Little disclaimer, I am not the most amazing ground RB player. It's not normally my content, but I've been getting into it lately. I've been hitting those mid 7s and 8s, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, and hopefully it'll be beneficial to you guys today. So what I want to talk about today, a lot of bit about a tank. The tanks being specifically the FV4202, but in relationship to the recent BR changes. So let's jump right into it. So this might be my new favorite British tank in War Thunder, and it's all because of the recent BR changes. I have recently been playing a lot of the Centurion Mark II, which is a recent Battle Pass vehicle to grind out the British Ground Forces tech tree. That tank has been sitting at battle rank 6.3. Gaijin has recently made a lot of battle rating changes for vehicles in this area, namely moving up early Cold War heat equipped vehicles up in BR, leading to sort of a resurgence in the heavy armor meta. So, well, what does that mean? That means everybody's playing their heavy armor. There's like Tiger 2s and Ferdinands and Jag Tigers and IS 3s and 6s and just a lot of heavy armor tanks that have not been in the meta for a while are now back, and they're more popular than ever before, and people are really enjoying it. And everyone generally agreed that first BR change was a positive change. So it's been very challenging playing the Centurion Mark II sitting at 6.3, but due to the popularity of the German 5.3, the Tiger H1 specifically, sort of anchoring down a very popular BR bracket there. It's been a healthy mix of up tiers and down tiers, and like I said, people saw these changes generally very positive. So, what does that have to do with the FV4202 at 7.3? Well, I'm getting to it, hang on. We've now had a second round of BR changes, and a lot of the 5.3 to 6.3 battle rating tanks also went up, sort of recompressing the battle rating between making like 5.7 to 6.7 incredibly populated and popular BR range. So the Centurion Mark II went up to 6.7, and I felt like I just stopped getting down tiers rather than facing like the German and Russian heavy armor most of the time. I faced it now all of the time. So I know what you're saying, skill issue, and at the beginning of this video I called out the fact that I'm like not the best ground player that's ever lived, which is, I consider myself to be sort of a above average ground player, but I'm no, oddballs. I'm no fly daily even. Like I don't have the hours that those guys do, but so I know what you're saying, skill issue, and I think you may be right, but I think the biggest problem has just been the weight of numbers, right? So, like, let's say you face a really heavy tank and you kill 2 of them or 3 of them, and you flank and you hit the right weak spots and you track them and barrel them, and you might kill 2 or 3 of them, but 2 or 3 of them are going to respawn. It's an incredibly large lineups that people have in those BR ranges, and the armor that they have access to in those ranges is incredible. So, I mean, you could set up a whole lineup with just heavy tanks, right? So you can only play so smart and flank and track and barrel so many of these intimidating foes before you succumb to the onslaught, especially if your team isn't up to snuff. So now finally we're getting to the tank here finally. Enter, and this is the part you've been waiting for, the FV4202 at battle rating 7.3. 7.3 battle rating is a bit of an odd duck these days. It used to be home to one of like the most busted lineups in the game, the German 7.3 lineup. among others. But generally, all of these lineups were raised. Like if it was an existing 7-3 lineup, it went to 8-0, or it got spread across like 8-0, 8-0-3, 7-7, etc. In the first round of BR changes. So what does sitting at 7-3 do for you? Well, you're not at 7-7. And the reason why that's important is because 8-7 is also an incredibly popular BR for many lineups. So you're not 7-7, you're not going to get a full up tier to 8-7, and you're not 6-7 where you're going to face up tiers to 7-7, right? You are sort of the cream of a current crop, right? The number of people playing their 6-7 lineups weighs it down to where you are an incredibly favorable in the matchmaker to get down tiers. Now, what does that mean? How does the tank match up against those 6-7 tanks? Well, let's get into detail about the actual tank itself. So the FV4202 is a pretty typical British tank in this range, being sort of the prototype for the chieftains and sort of like a late Centurion, right? So it's got, let's go for pros, right? Pros, decent mobility for the size. It's not the fastest tank. It has a really poor reverse gear, but it can get into the firing spots at early enough of the game, or at least be almost there to where it is a medium tank, right? It can get there. So let's talk about its gun. It has the heavy punching 84 millimeter 20 pounder, right? So it's a 20 pounder, and then it's the quick firing gun, right? It can penetrate most all of the armor that you're going to see at this battery. It has enough pin, and if it doesn't have enough pin, it also has an APDS, right? So it has the discarding sabot. So if you do the discarding sabot, you give up the projectile mass, and the mass is what's going to cause the spalling. So typically I have been staying with the solid shot AP round, and I've had reasonable success with it. So it's a big enough round and pins enough that it causes heavy tanks, right? You disable them, and then they're not fast enough to get away from you, so that you can have your second and third shot, right? Hopefully you don't need a third shot, but you at least might need that second shot. And let's go to another pro. So it has very strong sloped frontal armor, able to withstand most shells fired at the FV4202. I would say it's kind of trolly, and I'll go and be honest with you guys too. I straight up bushed this thing up. I bushed the heck out of this thing. I got so fed up with fighting these German heavies and these Soviet heavies. I was just like, I'm going to take every advantage I need. I try to not bush up my like low BR range ones, but I am not so good that I don't need bushes at 7-3, right? So I straight up bushed this thing up, and hopefully they had no idea what they were fighting against. And because of that, I think they might have aimed a little higher on my turret than if they knew what I was. If they aim higher on the turret, they're in that sloped armor segment right there, and I bounced a pretty good amount of shells in addition to already being a pretty strong turret anyways. Okay, so resistant to Soviet 85mm and German 88mm KWK-36 cannons at long range. And I think the important thing is long range here. Like I said, I kind of already covered this. I bounced a pretty good amount of shots. Another huge pro is as a stabilizer, which this is getting into that BR range where not everything has a stabilizer, but there are a certain number, and I think that's sort of the balance of the Brit tanks, right? You don't have a great reverse speed, you don't have super heavy armor, and your gun doesn't kill in one shot, but it reloads fast, and it has a stabilizer on almost all these, guns in this range, right? The Centurion Mark II has it, this one has it, and the later Centurions like the 7-7 and up Centurions and Chieftains do have it. So that's a big plus, especially facing these heavy armor guys that are just rumbling along. You can generally get the first shot off, and you need it, and then you'll disable them, and then you can finish them off. All right, let's talk about cons. It's got weak side armor. Yeah, don't get shot, right? I mean, like, don't get shot in the side in particular. Like, I can only think of maybe like the T14 and a down tier that can get shot in the side and not blow. So yeah, don't get shot in the side. Overall thin armor, yet sloped. Okay, sure. Again, you really should be kind of doing a sniping position, moving into position on these heavy tanks and sniping them. The only thing, maybe on some of the lighter tanks that outmaneuver you, your turret rotation is still fast enough to get to them, but they can be a pain because you don't have like a 50 cal on top, right? Air targets also, you don't have a really good way of dealing with air targets. You don't have like a 50 cal mounted on the top, so that could be problematic. Um, and then I mean, I think that's about it, right? The biggest thing is that it is sort of your typical British tank at this BR. You're dealing with solid shot ammunition with no explosive filler. If you're hoping for one shot kills, you're probably going to be disappointed. You're going to get plenty of assists. And when filming for this, I tried to get decent games, but I tried to include more footage of showing where I was actually contributing to my team, even if I wasn't blowing everyone up. So but that's kind of it. I found I had a really neat 7-3 lineup. I used the FV4202. You can throw the Rattel 60 or 90, whichever one has the Milan on there. There's also the little short stubby truck, which I can't even think of the number right now. It's like an AML something in the French tree. Those are fun vehicles to throw in there too. And then I was using the attacker plane for the jet bombing run. So check out this BR. It's a lot of fun if you're tired of dealing with the heavy armor. You have the mobility and the pin to deal with these bullies, and it's generally a lot of fun. You get a lot of down tiers, so check it out, guys. Also, if you're still here, please go ahead and like, subscribe. Really helps out the channel, and I'm going to be making more content like that. So please look forward to that, and let me know. Let me know down in the comments if you have any other comments or you want to have a question or something like that. But that's it for now, guys. Have a good one.